Welcome back to Bucketology, and this video was inspired by a question I had. So I watched Donovan Mitchell do some nasty stuff today to the Los Angeles Lakers. He was having absolutely none of this LeBron homecoming business. AD going out in like the first 2 minutes with flu symptoms. I'm not really sure what to make of that. I don't even remember the last time I saw this happen, but it completely changed the complexion of this game. And it was actually a wonder that the Lakers stayed in this game as long as they did, because as soon as you lose AD, the guy who's pretty much been putting the team on his back in the last several games, you're on the road, you're facing an elite opponent, and LeBron, it's all on his shoulders pretty much at this point, and he couldn't get it done. I mean, they double teamed him and other guys could not make shots. There was really nothing they could do as soon as Donovan Mitchell started cooking. He had like 3 points in the first 17 minutes, finished the game with 43, just a miraculous performance and a fitting one for how Donovan Mitchell has fit in with the Cleveland Cavaliers. If there was any doubt that he would be an excellent addition to this team, there can't be any more, because he has shown us that he has still got everything that we've seen from him over the past couple years and more. And it brings me to a question that I think is very important. I just put a poll out. I made a video this off season, and I don't know how many of y'all saw it, but it was my top 10 shooting guards in the league, and I had Paul George at number 1. And so right now, we're just not going to talk about Paul George because he's been in and out of the lineup, mostly out of the lineup, just came back last night. And I think in order to have a run where you're playing as well as Devin Booker and Donovan Mitchell are right now, you just need the continuity of being able to play every single night, being able to condition and train and work your way into a stretch like this. We call it mid-season form. You don't start the season on fire necessarily. A lot of these star players, you got to kind of work your way to that, and you get into a groove. And we're seeing what Donovan Mitchell is doing right now. And Devin Booker, besides that last game, he's kind of hitting that too, especially with that game against the Bulls, followed by the game against the Kings. Or I think the Bulls game was after the game against the Kings, but he had a stretch of awesome games recently before that Mavs game. And it brings us to the question that I am so very curious about your opinions on. And I don't know if I'm going to find myself a solid conclusion at the close of this video, because we have to remember, context is important. We are only 25 games into the year. How these guys are playing right now, it sure doesn't matter as much as how they'll be playing 3 months from now, 5 months from now, in April and May, when things get really important. And we've seen both of these guys come out on those stages and be the best player on the court. Donovan Mitchell has had that reputation as a playoff performer, and Devin Booker has been in the NBA Finals. These guys, so far this season, have been the best 2 guards in the NBA. And if you compare them side by side, you look at the stats so far this year, there are some eerie similarities here. And context is very important, of course. Donovan Mitchell joining a Cavs team that pretty much a superstar away from having the pieces to contend for a championship. And if Donovan Mitchell can continue how he's playing this season and be this guy in the NBA playoffs, they will have enough. It's all about if they can put the pieces together. My doubts with Donovan Mitchell in the offseason, and the reason why in that video I ranked him behind Devin Booker, was because coming off that year with the Utah Jazz, it didn't seem like he wanted to be there. Not only with him not passing the ball to Rudy Gobert, he was just taking a ton of shots, settling for a ton of jumpers, and his defense in that series against the Dallas Mavericks was as bad as I've ever seen it. This was certainly a reason why I had him a little bit lower, because when you turn into a shot chucker that doesn't guard and doesn't really set the table for teammates, you're not necessarily helping your team win games. If you're chucking up deep jump shots, you're only helping your team if you're making those shots. This year, Donovan Mitchell is making those shots. I'm not going to say he's chucking, but 42% from 3 is good enough where you really can't be mad at him for taking any 3-pointer at this point. He is absolutely cooking. His percentages are even better than Devin Booker's shooting percentages this year, which are still good in their own right. But 42% from Donovan Mitchell would be a career high. It is not what we expect. And in fact, I don't think it's going to be at this level at the end of the year. If he stays even above 40%, I think that would be a huge accomplishment for him. Again, he's never done that before. And it's not like he hasn't been a great shooter in his career, but the fact is that Donovan Mitchell is a guy that's going to just take a lot of threes. He's still taking more than 9 threes a game, but he's making 4 of them. And that is the key stat. And honestly, what separates these two guys at this point, not only the percentage of threes that they're making, but because their numbers are very similar, we don't have a lot to really compare there, we can take a look at how these guys are scoring their points to see who's better at what. Devin Booker, for example, owns the mid-range area. That's the short mid-range and the long mid-range, and there are not a ton of guys that have this deep mid-range shot in their bag. We know Devin Booker, he can get this shot from anywhere on the court. And he has done that, and Donovan Mitchell, he's just getting his points in other areas. He's not as good from this zone, but from the three-point arc, he has been one of the best players in the league, undoubtedly. He's on three-point contest trajectory. Now, like I said before, how much should we really react to this information? If Donovan Mitchell was shooting, say, 36% from three, how much does that change the complexion of his season and the Cavs season? The Cavs are 15-8 when Mitchell suits up and plays for them. They're obviously one of the better teams in the Eastern Conference, but this three-point surge is not necessarily characteristic. Yes, I said he could make the shot. He's still shooting a high volume. He's on fire. If he just shoots like this for the rest of the year, and this is just who he is now, that will take him to an absolutely whole new level. From Devin Booker's standpoint, this is not something we haven't seen before. Donovan Mitchell, I'm not sure if he's really been this close to the MVP conversation as he is right now, but Devin Booker, he's very familiar with that. Not only after he got to the NBA Finals, but last season he was phenomenal. He was top 5 in MVP voting, and this year he's just doing the same thing as the Suns sit at first place in the Western Conference. Yes, he still has trouble with the Dallas Mavericks, and maybe we knock him off a little bit for that. It's a big game, a big narrative game. Like, you got to come out and at least play well against this team. This is a rivalry now, and he came out and he completely shit the bed last night. Now, in Booker's defense, he's been playing this season with a lot of missing pieces on this team. For example, Chris Paul, not having Cameron Johnson. I mean, that definitely condenses the floor, and it doesn't allow you to space as well, which gives Booker less room to play, find his shot, and it really hasn't mattered, even without Cam Johnson in the lineup. Now in Donovan Mitchell's case, he's also played this year missing Jared Allen for a large chunk of the season. Darius Garland missed a bunch of time early on. We remember he was playing so well to start the year because Darius Garland went down and it was kind of all on him to create offense for this team. What I said about this team before the year started, it's going to be Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell doing everything for this team as far as initiation, shot creation goes. It all has to be through them. Can they handle that? Their defense is good enough to allow their offense to not be elite. But Donovan Mitchell has been absolutely elite. Donovan Mitchell has turned the ball over a little bit more, but he's bought in more on the defensive end than I remember him being, at least in that playoff series last year. If there were any doubts, I know he doesn't exactly have the reputation of an elite defender, but he's an athletic guy and he can make plays on that end, and we've seen that this year. Of course, it does make it a ton easier that you have guys like Evan Mobley and Jared Allen behind you to fortify the paint area. In the case of Devin Booker, he's a guy that used to really have the label as a defensive liability, something he's definitely turned around. He's certainly not the premier defender on this team by any means, of course, Mikal Bridges, but he can definitely hold his own. He's not a guy that's just going to get cooked all game, even if you put him on someone pretty decent that can get a basket. So overall, it's too close to call at this point. I would probably lean Devin Booker just because I think this three-point shooting by Donovan Mitchell is not really sustainable. He shot 35% from three last year. He shoots 36.5% for his career. I'm not saying he's just going to start clanking shots, but when you get to the playoffs, no one is shooting 42% from three on 9 attempts per game unless your name's Steph Curry. It's just the way it is. Donovan Mitchell's not going to be doing that in the playoffs. Those shots are just not going to be as easy as they have been for him. Whereas Devin Booker, he's shown proficiency in scoring literally anywhere on the court. Him being able to hit those 18, 20-foot jumpers consistently, and what we saw him do in the playoffs when he was there, he had absolutely no problem with it. We know he's an elite mid-range jump shooter, and that's a shot that I think is better suited for players in the NBA playoffs. Whereas that three-point line, it's definitely harder to consistently score points from there when you get into those tougher, more physical playoff matchups. Games are not refereed the same. They're not played at the same pace. There's more half-court offense, which boils the game down to simply getting a bucket. And that's what these guys are, shooting guards. They get buckets, and they're both excellent in the playoffs. Listen, Donovan Mitchell hasn't had a series, and he hasn't gone out the way that Devin Booker went out last year against the Mavericks. And that's one advantage that he has in this comparison. But I'm only saying Devin Booker because I went with him before the season, and I don't think we've seen enough for the sake of Devin Booker. Even though he had one bad game, Donovan Mitchell had a really bad game too recently. He was actually not even in double figures. He was completely taken out of the game, and that did have a lot to do with the Cavs having to play like Okoro, and no one is guarding him, so they can help on Mitchell when he has to pass, and OG Anunoby also guarding him is a factor in that too. So they've both had stinker games recently. It's not like they're immune. It's not like they're not human. We know both these guys are great. We know they can step it up when the stage is at its greatest. But Devin Booker, in that video, I had him at 2, and I had Donovan Mitchell at 3. I had Paul George at 1. We're not talking about Paul George right now. It's just between these guys at this moment. I'm not gonna flip-flop my ranking at this point because Devin Booker has just been awesome this year. I mean, he's been even better than he was last year. So I don't see how he could fall in that ranking. And this is only my answer if I had to pick one. Really? It's so goddamn difficult for me to pick between these guys, especially the way they've both been playing, especially watching what Donovan Mitchell just did to the Los Angeles Lakers. But that's going to be the video. Let me know what you guys think. I want your opinions though, because I need to hear what everybody's saying. I put the poll up, but give me a nice little explanation. Give me some detail. Tell me where I'm wrong and stuff, you know? We can have a little conversation, dialogue. That's going to do it. Let me know what you guys think, as I said, and I'm out. This has been Bucketology. Peace.